Hey, welcome to the 7th episode of AMC Heroes. I'm Jon Schnepp, and we are going to talk about everything involving the cinematic universe of superheroes. This week, we've got John Campea, as always. John, what's going on?
Hey guys, Superman, Fantastic Four, Ant-Man, trailers, amazing week.
We also got over here in this corner, Chris Gore returning,
Woo!
Amazing founder of Film Threat. You've seen him on G4. He's got a lot of things going on. Chris, what's going on today? What's happening?
Today, my Kickstarter for Film Threat ends. You can go to filmthreat.com. It'll take you right to it. And appreciate all the support. I know some backers who watched this show. They became backers, so I appreciate it. I also want to address, before you start, can I address a couple things from last episode?
Yes.
One thing, I actually got a fact wrong, which I feel really terrible about. Mentioning
I know the exact one you're going to talk
Commissioner Gordon starting in the TV show. I know I meant a different character. So I apologize. I want to apologize to everyone for just that. You know, you're doing stuff. You're so excited.
Sure.
Sometimes you make a mistake.
You were talking about Egghead.
What I'm even more disappointed about is you guys didn't call me on it.
I thought he meant Robin.
You guys should have called me on it.
Well, here's the thing. You know what people understand? People who don't understand, who don't do these shows, they don't realize that as you're sitting up here, you're trying, throughout the show, you're pulling off 1,000 different facts off the top of your head. Once in a while, you're going to get one wrong.
Yes,
and I thought about correcting you, but then I thought, well, who the F am I? This is Chris Gore.
No,
he says he started in the comic book. He started in the comic book.
You know, and we get into these this happens in nerd discussions. You're like, well, this was issue so-and-so.
Right.
No, it was actually Amazing Fantasy 15 was the
issue 161. I believe it was 163.
Spider-Man #1.
I believe you're wrong. It was in an alternate universe.
These things happen in moments of passion. But the other comment I got is some people said that I talk too much. So I brought in keeping with today's theme, some Batman duct tape, right? I brought in some Batman duct tape, which I'm going to hand to you guys. If ever you think I'm talking too much, just get out the Batman duct tape and we can take care of that right away.
Do you talk too much? You will.
Yeah, do you talk too much?
So like every time you agree with me, you're good. Every time you agree with Schnepp, just comes out. Got it.
So folks,
got it.
I brought in the Batman duct tape, and I don't want you to think that I'm talking too much. I just
all right. Put that duct tape on.
Everybody loved you on the show last time. People loved you on the show last time.
I don't want to dominate. I just like.
Wait. Check it out. Put that duct tape on right now, and take it off after I announce this very first topic: Batman versus Superman: Dawn of Justice. The trailer dropped. We all saw the leaked, shaky trailer, and then they were like, you know what, we're just going to drop it early. I think it was the same day as the Star Wars The Force Awakens trailer. So we saw these double trailers, incredible trailers. You know, we're going to talk about Batman v Superman right now. Chris, what was your reaction to the Batman v Superman trailer?
First of all, I did see that first trailer that dropped. I think it was in Spanish or Portuguese or something. It was weird. And finally, when it dropped, I don't know, I'm in two minds about it. One, I thought I was a little sad for it because there was so much joy in seeing the Force Awakens trailer contrasted, right? People were moved to tears. Matthew McConaughey was moved to tears.
That was awesome.
Which was a great video, viral video. But the Batman v Superman trailer looked kind of joyless, like depressing and sad. It looks like it's a Batman movie that Superman's in. So it was very dark. I mean, look, I know that DC's like, we're going to be dark. Ours aren't going to have humor. I think they really set that up and went a little too far. The one thing I'll say that I love more than anything in that trailer is Batman's voice. What's cool about it is it sounds like how I imagined Batman sounding in Frank Miller's The Dark Knight Returns comic series. That was really, to me, that is the thing that brought Batman back.
Yes.
Was that comic book explained how to do Batman correctly. And so his voice I thought was great because what's cool is it's not Ben Affleck. I mean, it is Ben Affleck, but it's not Ben Affleck speaking like this. It's modulated, which would make sense if Bruce Wayne wanted to keep his identity a secret. He would have a voice modulator change his voice for him. So I love the voice. I thought, but also it's like, what is it, 90 seconds?
Yeah, something like that, yeah.
2 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, so it's short. So I like
40 seconds of nothing. It's just darkness with voiceover. So
I saw
you saw
6
a lot
extra
more at the
seconds.
IMAX.
Well, not a lot more. I saw maybe 4 extra seconds at the IMAX thing. Okay, look, here's the thing. And I've been saying this all week, but we're on Heroes. I got to say it again. This is effing awesome. This trailer is perfect. It's perfect. And here's the thing. Since I was a teenager and I read The Dark Knight Returns for the very first time, right? That opened up the world of Batman to me because it introduces to a new Batman. This is not a Batman who saw his parents killed and he said, I'm going to get justice for everybody else who's wronged and protect the innocents. No, this is a man who's fueled by rage, pure, unadulterated rage. He is a living demon, a manifested nightmare for anybody who would prey on the weak. And there's this shot. You and I have talked about like 5 times. My favorite shot of this trailer, and watching it on IMAX really accentuated it. It's the close-up shot of Ben Affleck's face. And you hear Uncle Scar saying, it's the fever, the rage. And you see this very serious look on Affleck's face. But I said when it was on the computer, look closely, and on the big screen you see it. His face is literally trembling as that camera's on. Like you just sense the rage pouring out of him. This Batman and this iteration of Batman, he is meant to be that living, walking, talking nightmare for anybody who would threaten anybody else. And when he turns that rage on Superman, who we can all just assume at this point, he perceives as a threat to the world, that he's a negative force, and he's going to go out and kick his ass. This trailer is everything that I needed to bring joy into my lifeless heart. I love this thing. I said it before, I'll say it again. This Batman is going to make Christopher Nolan's Batman look like a love child of a Teletubby and Big Bird. He's going to look like a joyous, Christopher Nolan's Batman is going to look a joyous, happy dude next to this one. I'm not saying it's going to be a better movie than it. Who knows? We'll have to see. But I adored this trailer. And the last 6 seconds. For those of you who did not see the IMAX one, it's the exact same thing we saw on the trailer. It's just the trailer with an extra 4 to 5 seconds at the end. And what it is the camera comes back up and it's a close-up shot of Kal-El looking like really mad with rubble behind him, and he takes off. There's a close-up shot of Batman, and then he takes off, and then it's a side shot where you see both of them flying into each other like Rocky and Apollo Creed going, Aah! And then it ends. It was the awesomest ending. I wish they'd put that on the online trailer. So I mildly appreciated this trailer.
So wait, you've been saying that all week.
Yeah,
pretty much. You should be tired by now.
That's
insane.
Gone.
Wow.
Well, I love the trailer, and I think seeing the Star Wars trailer, and it made me feel so emotional and happy, and kind of fulfilled and relieved at the same time to see like all these characters that I grew up with coming back to the universe that was kind of a little bit sullied by those prequels, at least for me. And I feels like, it's that same universe, but revived, refreshed, all new, but also has the other characters that were from 30 years ago back in it, aged properly without makeup. It's crazy when people are going to see this in 100 years. They're going to be like, how'd they do that? They actually waited 30 years to make it's going to sound like, that sounds crazy. I know.
It's like, you remember that what he did with Boyhood? 10 years?
Yeah, Star Wars killed that one, man. But and then seeing this one, like, about 5 hours later, the shaky version first and then the clean version, I appreciate what the DC universe, the DC movie universe is doing. They're making a very strategic mark along the sand. It's basically saying, that's the Marvel Cinematic Universe over there, and this is our cinematic universe over here. The feel and the tone is completely different, yet I like both of them. I really liked Man of Steel. I mean, I'm one of those people that's like, look, there were a couple things I would have cut out and some things didn't work. But overall, I really enjoyed that film. And I was looking forward to a straight up sequel to Man of Steel, like Man of Steel 2, that they're doing this first to like kind of introduce the entire world of DC Comics. I don't mind it. At first I thought, it sounds like it's going to be too crammed. They're throwing in Waterman, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter is probably going to be the Flash, Cyborg. How many other people? Elongated Man, is he in it? How many other people are going to be in this movie? And then you're like, all right, look, I might have read the script. Who knows? A lot of people online keep saying I didn't read the script. I appreciate your opinion of what I didn't or did not experience in real life. Anyway, what I read, I thought was really good and it made sense to me. I was like, wow, they actually introduce all these characters smart and right in the right way. And everyone has just the right amount of screen time. Batman and Superman have the most screen time. It's Batman v Superman. And boy, when I saw this trailer, it just felt right. It felt like everything that Zack Snyder has done properly and correctly, he's nailed it. He's killed it. I mean, I was talking with Dennis earlier, like the only film that I didn't like is Sucker Punch. I mean, I loved Dawn of the Dead. I absolutely loved his Watchmen. I mean, he did such a perfect version of Alan Moore's script, even though Alan Moore took his name off of it, that is almost word for word Alan Moore. And story-wise, minus the squid, everyone's like, yeah, the squid wasn't it. We talked about that. You'd have to have the artist colony and add another 2 hours to properly do Watchmen. I think he did a great job with his 3.5-hour director's cut, which if you've never seen, check out the Watchmen Ultimate Cut. It's
even
fantastic.
Owls of Gaul was if you
I didn't even see that one.
Owls of Gaul, just seriously, pleasant surprise, very pleasant surprise. You haven't seen that little animated one that Snyder did. Check
Right, a
that
lot
out
of
too.
people
It's
have
really
told
good.
me that.
Yeah.
So I think everything Snyder's done, I've really appreciated and liked, and I was looking forward to this, and I feel like he got the tone, and he, above any of the filmmakers or directors that I've ever heard talk about The Dark Knight, specifically Frank Miller's The Dark Knight, I think he gets it. He gets the tone, and he loves that comic book just like we love it. We loved it because it transformed us when we were young. We're like, that's the Batman I always wanted. And then they went further and did Year One with Dave Mazzucchelli's incredible interpretation. So these things like shaped us and shaped the world of superheroes. You got to remember the late 80s was when everything came out. Watchmen, you had Thor being done by Walt Simonson. You had Fantastic Four being done by John Byrne. You had Frank Miller writing and drawing Batman. You had Howard Chaykin on The Shadow. It was a renaissance of writing and drawing and comic books and all these characters that came to life. So that was just the beginning for all of us. And then we all wanted these movies to happen. And we had to wait 15, almost 20 years. X-Men was one of the Blade, and then X-Men was like the start of the cinematic world for superheroes done right. Not like, hey, it's a goofy cartoon. Look at those stupid idiots in like their underwear running around. It was like, yeah, it isn't like that. It's like soap operas, but with violence. You know what I mean? It was like soap operas with a little bit more of an edge.
So what you're saying is it's not Super Friends, it's Batman versus Superman.
Yes, exactly. That is, honest to God, that is my point, because that's what I like about what at least DC is doing with their world right now. And they're not afraid to say, look, when they said it was like, we're not going to have any humor, they're just saying we're not going to be jokey wink, wink to the camera, and we're not going to have people like, which I love about the Marvel movies. It's cool to have Thor and Captain America like joking side by side, like, haha, you did this. I know, but check this out. And then taking out a bunch of robots. It's cool. And that's Marvel. Marvel has that fun sensibility. I think DC is going to be like, we are the Greek pantheon of uber gods and darkness, but super powerful and cool. And we're here to protect the world from this other weird stuff. You know, it's just going to have a different tone. And they're moving forward with it in a great way by taking the things that people hated about Man of Steel, where how come Superman never did anything and didn't care about destroying Metropolis? It's like, well, look, he was only Superman for like 3 days. Give him a break. He did a training session.
Can I tell you another theory of mine too?
Yeah, sure.
Afterwards, like I've heard a couple people say that this feels more like a Batman movie with Superman in it. What I would propose is that if you've read, and I know most people have not read it, but Injustice: Gods Among Us Year One, if you read that, my favorite personal comic story arc in the past 6, 7, 8 years. If you read that and you understand, you'll see the influence of Injustice: Gods Among Us in that trailer. Totally, especially when you got the soldiers kneeling to Superman. They got the Superman logo on. My theory is that you just brought up Superman was Superman for 2 or 3 days when that happened, and he did his best to save that city, the best that he could. I think what's happening here is now Superman is Superman. He's totally new to this. He's new to this power too. What do I do with this? What is the right thing to do? And I think you're going to see a little bit of a Superman
spy on your ex-girlfriend. Spy on your ex-girlfriend. That's
float creepily above a house.
Use your powers to spy on your ex-girlfriend.
Is it my responsibility to help out just where I can? Is it my responsibility to try to take a little bit more control and right the wrongs in the world, which is what leads Superman to becoming the tyrant in Injustice: Gods Among Us? And you see, I think we're going to see Superman on that edge. Which way is the right way for me to go? And the world and Batman seeing that and thinking, hell no, you are not going to become our savior.
I'm curious how, because what I do like about the DC universe and what they've done, and I'm not gaga over the trailer like you guys. I like Batman's voice. I like Snyder's interpretation of Batman, but it is a teaser trailer, admittedly. I think a lot of people were, with the first Force Awakens trailer was like, that's a great collection of 7 shots, right? But now the full Force Awakens trailer has come out, which still doesn't give anything away, and people are gaga over it. So I'm waiting for it, but I do like the tone. I like the tone that DC is going for a more realistic approach. How does the military get involved? They're spying on Superman with drones because they want to keep track of him. I mean, he's effectively a weapon. Also, what allegiance does he have? Does he have allegiance to a specific country? Like politics? Like, I mean, Watchmen really got into that. And I actually think that the ending that Snyder, how it was rewritten, is actually a better ending than the comics.
Makes more sense.
It's more logical. It's like, oh, well, Dr. Manhattan is the real threat. Exactly. So I'm taking a wait and see on it just until the next trailer comes. But I do have faith. I like the serious approach. I like the fact that Snyder and company think about how would the world react if these super beings walked among us. I mean, Batman's not a super being, but I guess he is.
Everyone else is in the DC universe. It's like you basically have a series of different weirdo gods.
Yeah.
And Superman being an alien floating, and like all these other super aliens showed up and blew up a city. And there's that one dude who's responsible for it. That's what this movie's about, is like taking that guy out and making him maybe learn a few things, or maybe he's going to have to deal with those, repercussions. So I think it's a really cool storyline, and it's obviously going to fold into Justice League. We know that they've announced all these movies, so you know what's going to happen, but it's how is it going to happen? It's pretty exciting. Let's move on to another exciting trailer that dropped literally within 24 hours of the Superman versus Batman. It was Fantastic Four. So it's Josh Trank's new attempt at reviving the Fantastic Four into a real franchise, a real film, after the first two kind of strange comedic versions with Captain America, Chris Evans with the Human Torch. It just didn't work out. It's like, I did not like those Fantastic Four movies. Chickless as a thing, Alba and Griffald. How do you say his name? Igano?
Ion Grufford.
Yoan Gufford.
Yoan Gufford. He's a good actor. He's a great actor. Everyone in there would really tried. It just didn't work. And being a Fantastic Four fan, it definitely didn't work when they fought a cloud. Let's not get into the cloud thing. Let's just move on.
The Galactus cloud.
You didn't like Disco, Mr. Fantastic, with the girls in his arms?
Oh my God.
What?
No, I don't want to think about it. Before we get into this Fantastic Four trailer, let's go back almost 20 years to 1994, over 20 years ago. Yeah. Chris Gore. No, hold that up, man. Okay. You were on set.
I was on set during
Fantastic Four.
Yeah, I was on set during the filming of the original Fantastic Four movie that Roger Corman produced. It was shot over the course of 2 weeks. And I was friends with the guys who worked on the special effects, right? They did the makeup effects. That's a signed copy of autographed by the cast. Alex Hyde White, who is actually Mr. Fantastic, and he was in Indiana Jones: The Temple of Doom. In any case, I was on the set during the filming because I'm such a Fantastic Four fan. Mm-hmm. It was my gateway comic, the movie that just made me fall in love with, or the comic that made me fall in love with reading comics.
Right.
And I remember buying all the giant size issues because that's how you could read back issues, was just by buying the giant size. They
Treasury edition.
Treasury, those giant ones that were like bigger than your head.
Only $1.95.
Yeah.
Back then.
Yeah, only 50 cents, still only 35 cents. So I was on the set during the filming of the whole thing, and I was just like huge. I mean, obviously that movie was never legally released. You can find it at conventions and online.
Any real nerd has it on DVD.
Yes. So yeah, I've got a standard def version. But yeah, we did a cover story on Film Threat. I remember talking to the guy from what was it, like New Concord Films?
That's right.
Roger Corman's company.
Horizons.
Concord Horizons,
right.
yeah. And it's like, so when's the movie coming out? And they're like, yeah, it's never going to come out. And what we found out years later, and there's actually, you should look this up. There's a trailer. I'm actually in a documentary about the making of this movie called Doomed, that'll be coming out later this year. And it's basically about this movie was made because they were trying to hold on to the rights. Because the company was New Constantine is a German company that holds the rights to the Fantastic Four films, and they had to be shooting the movie by a particular date. And I remember it was right before Christmas. Made no sense, but they actually started shooting, and then it went in through the rest of the year, but only 2 weeks to shoot it. And it was just depressing. I knew as I was watching the filming how sad it was because their costumes were actual spandex. And I remember seeing when we did this photo shoot for the cover, the girl who played Sue Storm major camel toe that we had to like airbrush out. We had to airbrush it out. It was like, that's how tight the spandex was. There was just no effort put into the costumes.
Wow.
And then I feel the same way as you about those other Fantastic Four movies directed by Tim Story. They were just, it looked like all the money went to the producers and none of the movie went into the effects. I mean, it was pretty sad. This new one, they're taking a different approach, clearly. Much more serious approach. So,
what are your thoughts on the trailer, the brand new trailer?
Thoughts on the trailer? I like. Here's the thing: is I like the direction they're going. They're taking it more seriously. I like the design of the characters. Here's where they've lost me. I'm not a fan of the Ultimates origin. I like the old sort of Camelot idyllic 60s. I like Reed Richards being an older dude that's into young blondes. What can I say? This is weird. It's sort of like, it's like watching the WB version of the Fantastic Four. Let's get young, hot, attractive cast together. And I'm still taking wait and see. Like, I like what I've seen. Right. I'm just not a fan of the Ultimate. I feel this is more based on Ultimates than classic Fantastic Four. Right. I grew up with the classic Fantastic Four. But I do like the serious tone, which is a departure from the last series of movies.
Let me say this. The Ultimates is also the Avengers that we've seen and loved. Right. So they didn't do the origin of the Avengers the way Stan Lee and Jack Kirby did the origin of the Avengers. Right. What they did is they used the Ultimates version of Nick Fury, and they did the Ultimates version of the Avengers, and that's what we got. It was like a fusion, but more so the Ultimates version. So I hear what you're saying, and being a giant Fantastic Four fan myself, growing up with Stan Lee and Jack Kirby's monsters and mutants and really cool cosmic energy and stuff, like going to the microverse. I mean, every issue of the Fantastic Four, if you haven't checked it out, you should buy the Marvel Omnibus. The first 30 issues, and then another one's out, the next 30 issues. It's fantastic storytelling, and it's cosmic, and it's fun. That's the most important thing I could stress, is every issue is fun. Every issue is just like, what can we come up with next? And they just throw characters at you. They throw situations, and then the very next issue, brand new situation, brand new characters, but it's those four people, and it's a family. And I think that's what the Ultimate version also carries through, is it's the family. It's the, hey, here's this guy, he's out of touch, but he becomes friends with this brother and his sister, and then he brings his friend, Grimm, along with him, kind of the, hey, I'm the tough guy. It's the same kind of situation as they had in the original Fantastic Four, only a little bit different. They aged him down, I agree. For me, I'm cool with them not having the tried and true origin story, because I've already got that. That's the comic book version. For me, I'm always about, what are they going to do? How are they going to make something refreshed and new? And how are they going to make it change with the times and be pleasing story-wise and cinematically? For me, I feel that everything I've seen so far, me and John have on the show, like I guess over like maybe a year ago or a year and a half ago when they first announced it, we weren't that into the idea of you doing the Ultimates version. I'd heard a lot of stuff. I knew that they were going to the negative zone, and I knew a lot of different things. And I was just like, boy, this doesn't sound that great. And boy, everything I've seen visually so far from these trailers makes me really excited. It makes me like, the reason I like the Fantastic Four, I've said it before, it's like a sci-fi horror film, but with superheroes. And when I heard that Simon Kinberg and Trank were like going with a Cronenberg kind of mutation vibe, keeping it horror, keeping it sci-fi, even without seeing the trailer, I was like, wow, I can't wait to see that trailer. Then I saw that teaser that they released. I loved it. And I absolutely love this. And, a lot of people are like, that's not Dr. Doom. It doesn't really matter. I have to say that. It's like Dr. Doom in the comic books is a despotic dude from Latveria who's trying to get his mother back, who's in hell. And he gets, there's a lot of weird stuff in that you have to, if you want that version of Dr. Doom, read the comic book. This is a different interpretation. I wouldn't go judging it until you see the film. That's how I feel.
But wait, is Doom a blogger? Is Doom like a troll?
So we've heard that he is a character that goes by the name of Doom online. You know what? It sounds goofy, but at the same time, you have to see it in context. I'm gonna reserve judgment, because the trailers for me so far have sold me on a new interpretation of the Fantastic Four that, at least to me right now, I'm really excited.
Or is it like one of those things with the Mandarin, where what I love about the Mandarin, the way they dealt with that character, it was the short film that was on, I forget, was it the
Hail the King or something like that?
Yeah, where you found out that wasn't really the Mandarin. There's actually a real Mandarin, and this actor played by Ben Kingsley, I thought that was great. So maybe there's a flip of that, I'm looking forward to it.
Right.
Again, I'm just not a fan of that Ultimates incarnation. But but what I've seen visually, I'm with you. And also, I'm one of those like where Fantastic Four, that comic book meant a lot to me as a kid. The first arc where you saw Galactus for the very first time, I remember reading that thinking, this is like a movie I will never get to see. Because it was over like mostly.
And you didn't get to see, you saw
never
Cloud.
got to see it. Well, mostly,
It's like a cloud.
Fantastic Four comics like were always wrapped up in one issue.
Right.
It was the first time like it
two-parter.
Yeah, this was like 2 or 3-parter.
No, it was two-parter.
Two-parter. I mean, and it is one of the most epic stories. I mean, and it's also like material from that has been lifted from so many people.
Oh, so much. And also they kept the Galactus was like, look, if you're not going to help me, you got to stay on Earth, Surfer.
Yeah.
So then the Surfer had to like fly around the Earth and he was all bummed out.
Yeah.
That's why he ended up getting his own comic series because Stan Lee ended up writing so many soliloquies for him. They're like, just give him his own comics so Stan Lee can like have him wax eternal about like, I'm so bummed out that I don't get to fly around the galaxy. You know, it's like bumming out all the time. So John, what did you think about the Fantastic Four
let me
trailer?
just say, I was with Chris at the beginning. You know this. You and I both were, right?
Totally.
Like I wanted the classic Fantastic Four. I wanted the older Reed Richards, and I affectionately called them the Fantastic Four babies, and, like the Muppet babies, right? When it first came out, I didn't want the Fantastic Four babies. It took me 6 months to get over that. But after 6 months, I just sat back and I said, okay, Kimberg's writing. All right. Josh Trank's directing. Okay. Miles Teller, who's already getting Oscar buzz. All right. Michael B. Jordan, who got tons of Oscar buzz last year. All right. Kate Mara. Yeah. Sign me. And then I just sat back and said, okay, I'm not getting the movie that I originally was asking for. They're giving me this movie. All right. Are they going to do a good job making this movie? And so far, from the casting, the writing, the directing, the visuals are seen, the trailers that we've seen. I mean, Dr. Doom's a blogger. Okay, whatever. That's not really the important thing is when his starts to look like that, who is Dr. Doom? Once he looks like that,
Right.
Who is Dr. Doom? I gotta say, this trailer was a love letter from Fox and Josh Trank to everybody like me who had been complaining about Fantastic Four since a long time ago. And in that love letter was just a couple of simple words. Shut the hell up. That's what I think.
I thought it was clobbering time.
It's clobbering time. That would
you
be
see
even
the
better.
thing jumping out of a plane. The thing looks badass.
Yeah.
The thing looks incredible.
Terrific. It looks terrific. So I think this trailer was as good as I think you could have possibly done a Fantastic Four trailer. I really do. And I've gone from being okay with this film to like, hey, I'm not against it anymore. Let's see it. I've now crossed that threshold. I'm flat out excited for this movie now. So, and I think it brought a lot. This is what I said on AMC Movie Talk. This trailer became a narrative changer.
Yeah.
It changed the narrative because it went from 80%, this movie's going to suck online. And I was one of those voices early on to now, that's the minority now. Now people are looking at this trailer going, hey, maybe we need to give this thing a shot because so far it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I'm with you.
I'm with you too. I'm excited. So the trailer did what it's supposed to.
Yeah. So let's talk about something that was a bummer news for everybody. Wonder Woman's director took off. Michelle McLaren left the film because everyone's saying these behind the scenes reports that she wanted to have like a big Braveheart kind of like, Amazonian battle sequences and not key in too much to Diana. They also were saying she wanted a pet tiger. You heard a bunch of rumors as to why she left. We don't really know what's true, but we do know that Patty Jenkins, who was going to direct Thor Dark World and then left that film, now she's directing the new Wonder Woman. So what do you guys think about this change up with directors?
Well, I think I feel like it's a little pandering that they have to have a woman director. I mean, I'm glad we're finally going to see a big superhero film with a female director's vision. And I don't know, again, on this wait and see. I mean, these things also, we have no idea what all this stuff was over. They're saying creative differences, but that is such a blanket statement for every departure. Too soon to tell. Also, what is this Wonder Woman movie going to be? Is it going to have any connection to the Linda Carter series of the 1970s?
I think you want that connection, don't you, Chris Gore?
Will we see Wonder Woman spin around and change into her outfit? I'm just curious. What I think it's less important who's directing it, more important what the take on Wonder Woman is, because Wonder Woman, and I'm not even up to speed on what modern Wonder Woman.
Right.
I mean, look, I read some of the comics when I was a kid. I love the references in all the DC documentaries actually go into the creation of Wonder Woman, and I was some weird BDSM fantasy from the guy who created it. Like, I'm going to tie you up, and then I'm going to tie you up.
Yeah.
And then
every cover is her tied up and restrained with like the god of Mars, like the god of war, like I will victorious victorious over the woman again. She's like breaking free. No, you're not. Poof.
It's no different than like Eric Stanton like pulp, cover from like the 1950s,
Sure.
but in comic book form, but under the guise of superheroes. So I don't know. Like I that's something where it's like, I think it's okay to not have an opinion. I have no clue. I hope that the people that are making the decisions at the top are making the right decisions.
I'll tell you
that's
this.
what's more important.
My guess is that I think they're going to take a page from the Captain America book, and they are going to include a little bit of World War II with, I think his name was Steve Trevor. Steve Trevor. Steve Trevor. Steve Rogers is Captain America. But it's Steve Trevor. He crash lands on the Amazon.
Who first appeared, by the way, in the Batman television show.
That's right. You heard Campea say something wrong. So yeah, I think they're going to add a little bit of that flavor just to show, number one, that Diana, Wonder Woman, is kind of probably has a longer lifespan than humans. They'll maybe show her at the same age, and then they'll show her now and she's the same age as, I'm guessing. I don't know. I really don't know, but I would hope that most of the movie takes place, or at least half of it takes place now, as opposed to all of it taking place in World War II. What do you think about the change in directors?
Well, the big concern for me about the change was that, okay, Edgar Wright leaves Marvel, but that was over because things changed over 5 years, right? Things change over time. Plans change over 5 years. My big concern about this director's change has been, look, Warner Brothers, what are you doing? You just sat down and talked with this woman who's going to direct Wonder Woman for you 5 months ago, where you laid out what you wanted, she laid out her vision, and you said, yes. And now just 5 months later, we're reading reports that the two of you couldn't agree on anything. That tells me either one, Warner Brothers is terrible at communicating their vision to their potential directors, or two, they're terrible at listening to their potential directors, telling them what their vision is in the first place. That's concerning, but it's now in the past. Who cares? Now we're looking at Patty, right? I am a little nervous because of the lack of feature thing, but look, she's directed episodes of Entourage. She directed episodes of Arrested Development. She's directed episodes, a couple other shows that are now eluding me, but she's got a pretty decent track record of her ability to take on a story, tell that story, and get the characters really flown on screen. If she can do that in Wonder Woman, then great. So I'm okay that they made the change. Like I said, it just makes me a little bit concerned about who's in charge at Warner Brothers right now?
That's the big question. Who's the Kevin Feige that's basically overseeing all this?
Because Tsujihara said he was going to take a more hands-on approach. When Kevin Tsujihara took over there, like he's the big boss at Warner, it sounded like he was going to be more hands-on. He went out and he got The Rock. From everything I understand, it was Kevin who went out and got The Rock to bring him in. But he's got all of Warner Brothers to run. So, Chris, you raised the exact question. Who is overseeing this? Who is making these decisions? That's the one thing that's leaving a little bit of a question mark on this for me right now, and we'll have to see it move forward.
I bet that answer will come at San Diego Comic-Con, is my guess.
Maybe.
I think
that's a good guess.
Because they're gonna be hyping this big film, Batman v Superman, and then they're gonna be wanting to set up all those next films and get people excited about Wonder Woman, get people excited about Aquaman, get people excited about Justice League. So they're going to want to have that centralized force. It's not a Christopher Nolan-y, a Kevin Feige, whoever it's going to be, who's in charge of this overall, the architect of all this stuff. So we'll find out, I guess, very soon. Check it out. They just announced the writers for Captain Marvel. It's Meg Lefauve. I'm going to destroy the name here. Lefauve. I don't know how to say it. And Nicole Perlman. They're the writers for Captain Marvel. And there's also rumors going on that Angelina Jolie might be possibly directing it. But these are the writers. One of them wrote Guardians of the Galaxy and did a great job.
Yeah, it was Nicolay Perlman.
Nicolay Perlman.
Nicole Perlman.
Nicolay,
Meg Lefauve.
It was Nicole Perlman who actually wrote it, and then James Gunn came in and did a cleanup on it.
Yeah. So what do you guys think about them announcing the writers finally getting Captain Marvel moving forward?
I think that this will be, like Nicole Perlman, to be able to take Guardians of the Galaxy, be able to turn that into what it was. At least the template for what, I know that James Gunn did a lot of work on that. All the stuff like with the music and the Walkman and stuff, that was all James Gunn's touch. But the fact that she could actually, get the structure out for that film, I think is important. I think so I think, I don't know. And also, here's the thing with Marvel, they can do anything. There's Kevin Feige is there, and they have like this sort of the gatekeeper that's going to make sure that there's some quality assurance. So to me, I don't care who's writing it. It's really irrelevant. It's the fact that they have someone at the top that can look at that and go, now it needs another rewrite, or it needs this, or it needs this kind of touch. So I have full faith in Marvel in this, because I feel like they have the infrastructure in order to have quality control on all their films.
I care very much about who's writing it. I think because you can have somebody overseeing it. If you got terrible workmen, no matter who's the foreman there, the building's going to turn out bad. But one of the other neat things about Nicole is that she also wrote the first draft uncredited for Thor. And the rumor has it right now that she has written a first draft for a Black Widow movie.
Ooh, nice.
Now that doesn't mean that they're doing a Black Widow movie, but so she is clearly completely integrated with the Marvel Cinematic Universe right now. This isn't a case of, oh, it's a movie about a female character, we got to go get women to write it. No, this is somebody who is deeply involved and ingrained in this universe. So it's a really good choice all the way around, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm excited. I think it's important too to like have writers who are in touch with the characters and are going to be able to add something to it. And it's a female character. Why not try to get a female writer to add that layer and that level that maybe a male writer wouldn't get to? So I think it's a really good choice and really smart for them to go forward with Captain Marvel with 2 female writers. I think it'll be very fun to check out what happens. Next, we're going to go to Minor Mutations. This is a sequence of events that happened really quickly. I'm going to read off a bunch of information, then we're going to talk about it. We're going to show it to you in comic book form. First off, Deadpool fights Colossus on a bridge. Some crazy action. It doesn't really look like Colossus. It's just a dude with a bunch of things on him. But eventually,
very tall dude.
Yeah, very tall dude. Eventually, that will become a guy made of metal. Adam McKay is in the running to make any Marvel movie he wants. Adam McKay, old friend of mine from Chicago. He was an original Upright Citizens Brigade. If you don't know that, he was an original forming member of the Upright Citizens Brigade. Moved on to do Anchorman. This guy, one of the funniest minds, one of the quickest, funniest minds I've ever met. Super fast, can spit out the funniest stuff you'll ever hear or see. And now he might actually be doing what you hear might be the Inhumans. Jared Leto is showing off his Joker hair in a bunch of photos on Instagram and Twitter and everywhere. So we're getting to look and see what he looks like, and he's really starting to shape up to look like the Dark Knight.
Yeah.
Is he working out and getting in shape to play the Joker?
No, I think he's going to play the Dark Knight Frank Miller Joker. That's what it looks like.
Yeah, with the big shoulder pads.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to that. Matthew Vaughn is up for directing Flash Gordon. Now, this sounds incredible. I am all for this. I really hope it happens. I would love to see a Matthew Vaughn take on Flash Gordon, and keep all the Queen music, please. Chris Hemsworth reveals his last 3 Thor films. It's going to be Thor Ragnarok and then the last 2 Avengers movies. It's not a shocking surprise. It's not like he was like, I'm going to be Thor Ragnarok and then I'll have a cameo in Spider-Man. You'd be like, that's not happening. So yeah, he's going to be in both Avengers films. Makes sense. They sent him on, you'll see. The Death of Superman Lives. What happened? A small film that I'm making. The trailer dropped on that. So check it out. It's going to be showing in select theaters starting May 1st. You can get your tickets. You can go and find out how to pre-order it for July 9th at tdoslwh.com. So guys, what do you think about the Minor Mutations? What pops out to you?
Flash Gordon. I think Matthew Vaughn, I think that's a great choice. And Flash Gordon's also like you and I, John, are big fans of the Flash Gordon film from the 1980s.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of that. I don't know what kind of take, which is completely different than, the Alex Raymond comic and the serials with Buster Crabbe in the 1930s. Yeah. I mean, like those are different entities, and both are cool. I mean, I loved watching those serials as a kid, and then that movie blew me away when I saw it first time around with the Queen music. I think we're going to see a completely different incarnation. It's not going to, you'll see little, nods to those things.
I wonder if they'll make a nod to Flesh Gordon. I don't know if that'll happen.
I doubt that they will with the Penisaurus, right?
That's
Isn't there
right.
Penisaurus? But I think Matthew Vaughn, especially having seen Kingsman, I think that, wow, let's see him. Let's see what his take on, and also Flash Gordon's been in development on and off for so long.
Yeah.
I mean, George Lucas tried to make Flash Gordon in like the early 70s.
And they said no.
Yeah. So, and then, and also there've been other people that have tried to attempt.
There's been weird TV shows of Flash Gordon.
That TV show was pretty awful.
Yeah.
But I do like that old movie. I'm just curious where they're going to go with it.
I don't care about Flash Gordon. I think I think it's a story that's a bit out of time. However, you suddenly attach the name Matthew Vaughn, and now you've piqued my interest. And then you even got me more interested in it earlier today, because you and I watched that Tomorrowland trailer today, and you made a comparison between Flash Gordon and the look of that. And then suddenly I'm like, you bring that kind of a style to a Flash Gordon? Hey, maybe. Going down the list, the Colossus Deadpool thing, just another picture. The Adam McKay thing. Hey, remember, this guy also wrote Ant-Man.
That's right.
And they loved his pass on Ant-Man, and he was going to direct Ant-Man, and then there were just things got too crazy, and they moved him off, got Peyton Reed in. That works fine. The Joker picture, he's got green hair right now. We haven't seen, and it's too premature to think we got to look at the Joker right now. We don't. Flash Gordon thing. Thor. Listen, Chris did not say this is his last 3 films. He simply said these next 3 films are the last 3 of his contract. But we've seen several of these Avenger cast members re-up and renew their contracts. So we'll see where they go with him after that. And who gives a crap about the death of Superman? I cannot wait to see this movie. I'm going to be on the red carpet in Los Angeles, May 30th at the Egyptian Theater. Make sure you are there too. If you can. Can people still get tickets? Or is that
actually April 30th.
It's April. Did I say May 30th? Sorry, April 30th.
April 30th, and then May 1st and 2nd, it's also playing at the Egyptian. If you can't make it to the red carpet, but try to come at one of those 3 times. It's only playing in LA for those 3
You should do a Periscope from the red carpet.
I definitely will.
Do a Periscope, man.
We're going to Periscope it up. Sorry, Meerkat. I don't even know. Is Meerkat still around?
No.
Okay.
Oh, they're still around. They're still around, but 1/4 the size of Periscope, but and dwindling.
Guys, we're talking about new technology here on AMC Heroes. Now we're going to go back in time to a little time, 2000 for you millennials. Superhero flashback. We're going to talk about X-Men. The very first X-Men movie. We had Blade, we had Spawn, we had The Crow, a little film called Steel. They all came out before this film, with Blade totally upping the ante for all the superhero people. We're like, wow, we finally got a cool superhero movie. Then came X-Men. It was the game changer in 2000, the long-awaited movie of the popular mutant superhero comic book team that all of us loved. We loved it, starting with Chris Claremont and John Byrne, Len Wein, those guys, Dave Cockrum, all those guys who originally created the brand new X-Men. Of course, we had Stan Lee and Jack Kirby creating the original X-Men. Neil Adams had his amazing run. We've got so much amazing X-Men comic book lore. Then we were like, wow, what is this movie going to be? Let's talk about the very first X-Men.
What was funny was I remember what people complained about at the time. Where's Wolverine's yellow suit?
That's right.
How come he doesn't have a yellow suit? He's just got this thing. What I think, I mean, when you look back on that movie now, because I watched it recently, it's pretty anemic with the effects. The effects are crude, and I mean, obviously the modern tools, you know, he didn't have access to the modern tools. And Bryan Singer's not exactly known as an action director. He's more of an indie film guy. What struck me about the movie that I personally loved was it felt like an independent film with superheroes in it. And it really nailed the characters. I mean, like, I feel like Hugh Jackman, him as Wolverine, like, wow, I was not a huge Wolverine fan before this movie. I was more of a classic X-Men, you know, the first 100 issues before they did that giant size.
Beast, Iceman,
Beast,
Marvel Girl,
Cyclops.
all of those. All of those you'd read the comics, and the dialogue was so crude. It was like, Cyclops here reporting, sir, Professor X. I mean, when you read that dialogue now, when you actually physically read one of those comics, it's so juvenile and cheesy. But I got all caught up with it, so I was a fan of that. So Wolverine wasn't a part of that, but the way that they approached his character, the way they showed like the pathos, the way, like, I love that one line where I forget who asked him, you know, like, does it hurt when they come out? He says, every time.
Yeah, right.
You know, like that. Like
Rogue asked him that. I think.
Yeah, Rogue. Yeah, it was Rogue. So like I love that. Like, he nailed, like, how do these characters really feel in the real world, and that just sold me. And now it spawned like the whole X-Men. I mean, X-Men is a franchise separate from Marvel. It actually is very separate from Marvel because you can't say mutant in a Marvel movie.
Right.
So yeah, I think it's interesting to see, like, you know, from whence this spawned. But I'm curious now with Days of Future Past, is now that wiped away, that timeline gone?
I don't, you know, it's hard to tell. It could be a melding of everything. It's like, it could be all the things that were bad about it got washed away and all the cool things stayed. Or
that is Earth 2 in the X-Men universe, possibly?
I don't know, but you know what I really liked about X-Men in 2000? I loved that they were able to make something that didn't have masks, yet they were all really true to the characters. And I felt like that was something that we needed to see happen in the transformation from a comic book to the screen. Like, look, I don't have anything against masks. I think it's cool. And it's like, now that we've had so many different kinds of films, the movie-going audience and the general public is more used to being like, oh, this is one that where like Kick-Ass, they're going to put masks on, or, you know, or they're going to be, this one's more real world and this one's more fantasy. So we have this different line that we can cross now. But back then in 2000, it was just like, oh, we only really had Superman the movie and the 1989 Batman, and those were, and Batman Returns, and, you know, the Superman 2 were like the, you know, the sequels, and then the continued sequels for both Batman and Superman went downhill in quality, in story, and in audience. So that's what kind of killed those franchises. And people just kind of had a general like, oh, it's goofy, it's comic books, it's stupid. That was the general idea. And the treatment of like, if you were walking around with a comic book, people looked at like you were a mutant. They were like, what's wrong with you? There's something wrong with you. You're reading comics. You're like, yeah, they're awesome. What's wrong with you? Comics are for children. There was really that mentality in the, you know, when I was growing up in the late 80s and in the 90s, reading comic books, it was like, I always carried them around with pride because I wanted somebody to say something to me, but like, yeah, check it out. You know, it was almost like a throw down your books kind of thing, you know, for me. But it's like, I love comic books, and seeing the X-Men done in a great way but the characterizations of all those characters, it didn't matter that Wolverine was 6'4". Everyone was getting too caught up with the idea of like, he has to be tiny. He has to have the yellow outfit. Where's his mask? It's like, that's Wolverine. What you're looking at on screen is the characterization of Wolverine if it was brought into the real world. That's what also helped the transition to all these other superhero films that we're now seeing. And it even achieved that within the writing. It flipped back on itself that comic books were like, we can write them more realistic. We can take the masks off. We can try different things in comic books that we didn't do because thanks to the movies, we now have a bigger audience.
And if you look at it, look back at that time, you remember, I mean, Blade and X-Men proved, hey, you can do a serious superhero movie and it can do well at the box office, and it can actually reach an audience beyond comic book fans. And if anything, this movie helped, you know, usher in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah.
You know, though not directly connected, that was the invigoration of superhero films. You can do it a different way. It's not about putting on a mask and having a secret identity and all this. There are different ways to tell those kinds of stories.
This is one of my all-time favorite comic book movies of all time. And, you know, with all due respect to Blade, which came out, and I love Blade and I love Blade 2, and let's not talk about Blade 3. You know, there's still a lot of people out there today, you talk to them about Blade, they don't know that was a comic book movie. And you know, if you talk to Charles Roven, who's one of the producers on the Christopher Nolan Batman series, you know, he put it succinctly. He put it the way it is. There was no Batman Begins if it wasn't for that X-Men movie in 2000. You want to beat that mentality out there that you were talking about, oh, comic books are for children, blah, blah. Yeah, start your movie with a shot in a Nazi concentration camp. Do that,
right,
and then you kick that to the curb. When that first shot, I remember being in that theater. I was in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, Canada, sitting down and watching this first one, and it opens at this grim, rainy, mud-soaked thing in this concentration camp, which is like the most horrific thing ever in humanity. And they started with that, and that thing of young Eric reaching for his parents and the metal crushing and then cranking his head. And then right shortly after that, Wolverine in that bar in Alberta, Canada, where he's like, there's real prejudice and he's going to kill some fools in there. It sent a message that this is a new era. This isn't just a new movie franchise. This is a new era. And all due respect to everybody who talks about how it was the Dark Knight series that brought along, that first introduced the comic book movies to the possibility of some grittiness and dark. No, it was not. It was the X-Men in 2000. Batman later, then up the ante. Mm-hmm. This was not only a great comic book movie, this was an important comic book movie. It really is the godfather of what we're able to enjoy and watch now. That Batman v Superman trailer doesn't exist if it wasn't for X-Men. Right. The Batman films don't exist if it wasn't for that X-Men. And you listen to a lot of producers in Hollywood, it's the movie that really did open the industry's eyes to go, we can do this. And we can make it successful. And for that reason, many years, it's one of my favorites.
Yeah, it also proved to people that like X-Men, the first one, did not have a big budget. And because a lot of people were like,
by
this
modern
movie, yeah, but a lot of people were like, this is going to fail and this is going to bomb. A lot of people were very afraid of even like, I can't believe you're making this film. And that it made so much money and was successful, not just monetarily, but critically, and all of us loved it. Like the fans loved it. You know, the majority of the fans. Some people didn't like it as much. X-Men 2 upped that ante. I personally love X2. We'll talk about that in the future weeks. But X-Men was the perfect introduction to our world that we now live 15 years later. A world populated by fun superhero films of all different kinds.
And you know what? Complain all you want. they got Wolverine's hair right.
Oh, I
know, right?
Okay, right? They got
But
it.
I still remember, it bears repeating. When they first announced, this is before the internet was really big and popular, so there was very limited stuff going on. But still, when they announced this dude, Hugh Jackman, everybody, what do they want? They want Danzig or something like that to play Wolverine.
Totally.
Because he kind of looks right. What does that have to do with anything? They went out and got this Broadway song and dance Australian dude. He's a Wolverine, and everybody moaned and complained almost as much as they did about Heath Ledger when they cast him as Joker. They moaned and complained and whined, and I had my apprehensions too. He's 6. He's too tall. He's too big. He's a singer. Who cares? And now we talk on the show about Mr. Jackman. You have to play this character for another 30 years.
Please do not
You know, I just
retire.
changed
Unload
everything.
all the money onto his 4 mansions. Give him whatever he wants.
It's weird. Does he have the mutant ability to not age? Because I mean, he's been 35 like in all the films.
I know.
It's
And he's gotten
bizarre.
physically bigger. He's like 30 pounds, like more muscle now.
More
than
buff,
when he's,
yeah.
Oh my God, that dude keeps himself in shape.
Well, guys, we're going to move on into the territory of Spotlight. We like to call this Spotlight because I take a look at characters from the comic books that have not yet been adapted into a cinematic movie. So right off the bat, I'm going to talk about one of my all-time favorite comic book storylines. It's called Miracleman. Now, Miracleman started out in the UK as in a comic magazine called Warrior as Marvelman. It was written by a young writer named Alan Moore, who went on to write Watchmen, Swamp Thing, a whole bunch of incredible stories, The Killing Joke. So this guy, Alan Moore, was writing Marvelman. It's kind of like a tribute to Shazam, but if Shazam took place in the real world, and it was written in such an amazing way that when it came over to the US, they retitled it because of the issues with Marvel Comics. So it got retitled Miracleman, and it was published by a small independent comic publisher. So this is like kind of like the adult version of Shazam. And I gotta say, this is literally one of the first 16 issues, and then he stopped writing it. It's one of the greatest comic book stories that most people don't know about, that most people have not read. This is the granddaddy of all superhero movies. This is what Batman v Superman is based on. A lot of people don't even understand how important Miracleman is to all modern comic books and all modern cinematic superhero films. If you haven't heard of Miracleman, Marvel recently was able to get the rights back to Miracleman. They got the rights and they've republished it all. So now it's really easy to get, because for a long time it was out of print. And that issue that you just saw, the cover number 15, where Miracleman fights Kid Miracleman in London and basically almost the entire world. If you think Metropolis was destroyed, this is where they got that idea. This is where London is aflame with bodies impaled because Kid Miracleman has been trapped because his human version won't say the word to transform him back to the evil Kid Miracleman. So Kid Miracleman's inside of this little boy for years, like, you better release me. You better release me. For years, the kid's, tortured by bullies and abused. And finally he says that word. It's atomic backwards, Komoda. And then Kid Miracleman is here. And it is horrifying. The only person who can take him out is Miracleman. And Miracleman is basically what would happen if Superman really lived in our planet. You'd be like, I'm just trying to figure this out, but now I'm a god. I float around. I'm invincible. I fought some bad guys. There's some problems with this planet that I can fix. The governments of our world might not really like it. And then Miracleman's like, what are you going to do about it?
I feel like you could drop your mic right now.
No, I'm just saying, it is, when you read this comic book, it will transform you. It's so well written. Alan Moore was at the height of his writing abilities, and he was at the height of, he was like, I've said everything I've ever wanted to say about superheroes, and he was dropping the mic, and then he came back later. He's like, I'm never going to write a superhero movie again. Never say never. He wrote so many more comic books about superheroes, but he felt like at that time that he had said everything he needed to say about the genre of superheroes, and he was like, I'm going to go into mysticism and magic and some other things. He eventually returned to superheroes and wrote a bunch more cool stuff. But Miracleman to me is the superhero comic book that just boils it down in such a way. And some of my favorite art is done by this artist, John Totleben, who unfortunately had an eye problem. So it took him a really long time to get through doing these issues. But as you could see, just that cover of Miracleman number 15, if you could see that, check out the art in this is so beautiful and dark and almost anti-superhero in a certain way. But it's beautiful. So I really got to suggest Miracleman. I don't know if you guys have read Miracleman or not.
Oh, I read Miracleman.
Okay.
And the thing is, you bring it, And you frame it so perfectly. It's one of those comics that you read and you feel like you're alone on an island because it's awesome and you can't even talk about it to anybody because nobody's read it.
I know.
No, and the only reason I read it is because I have enough buddies of mine who care about me enough to say, you need to read this and put it in front of my face. It is so well written. Right? That's the thing that some of the best comic books, they nail dialogue great. They nail a lot of different things great. But a lot of comic books, even some of the great ones, don't nail character development great. And when you read this and you feel like you get this, you just described him so perfectly, like who this guy is and what predicaments and what circumstances, just who he is causes, right? But it is one of those like the little album you've got in your collection somewhere that no one's ever heard of, but it completely influenced rock and roll. You know, that's the type of movie that this could be.
Rush's 2012.
But I will say this though,
21.
It also presents the type of limitations that Superman can present in the sense that he is so powerful, it almost limits what you can do franchise-wise. Movie, easy. Franchise, difficult just because of that. But anyway, that's just the way I see it.
I do see it though. If Miracleman was adapted, they could do an amazing trilogy because it really does. Even the way it's written, there's book 1, book 2, book 3.
Yep.
Book 3 is that dark one that I'm showing you the cover of, but it begins with book 1 like, hey, you're just a dude, and like you say the word Komoda, and you go into limbo, and another stranger, more powerful super version of yourself comes to save the day. They both have different personalities. Even they go into the psychology of the human version of being like, I don't feel even worthy. I feel like subhuman. I'm just going to say Komoda and just stay floating forever, and you be Miracleman forever. It gets really weird. Like it takes on certain things that you can't really do with like characters that are franchised that need to stay alive forever, or to be, constantly transformed. I think the Superman character is being transformed in a cool way through the hands of Zack Snyder, and different writers recently have rewritten Superman like Grant Morrison and given this new context to Superman. So Chris, what do you think?
Well, first of all, here's what I'm embarrassed about. I own all the Miracleman comics when it first came out from Eclipse because I was buying so many comics at that period. That was a new golden age of comics.
Yeah, Eclipse.
At that
Thanks
time.
I couldn't remember Eclipse. Yep, Eclipse.
Yeah. So I bought them all and I didn't read them. So now I have to go to where my storage space is, dig out one of my long boxes, and I'm going to read those. But I want to throw down just a reference to another comic that I know is a favorite of yours, John, that also is MM, which is Machine Man.
Oh yeah,
illustrated by Jack Kirby. And it's almost a Pinocchio story about a scientist who creates this machine that doesn't really realize that it's a weapon.
We are going to talk about Machine Man.
We're going to talk about Machine Man,
but not in this episode.
Not in this episode.
We can only do 2 this episode.
I'm throwing out a reference of like Machine Man.
Machine Man is he's one of my all-time favorite characters,
Me
and
too.
we will talk about him. I don't know if you'll be on the episode, but I'll save him for you.
Back.
Wait
Machine
until Chris
Man.
comes
All
back.
right, we're going to move on because we got a few minutes left to the Twitter questions. Question number 1 comes from Rob. He says, can you think of a more intimidating line than "Tell me, do you bleed? You will" in a superhero movie ever? If so, what is another line that is as intimidating as that Batman line?
Oh
man, that's tough. I feel like he's sort of stated it right there. What is more intimidating? I can't think of one.
And then look, I'm sorry, I'm going to keep going off on this. Who says that to Superman?
Right.
Who says that? I'll tell you who does. Batman does. That's who says that.
I've got one line that is,
I don't know.
It's the reverse. It's Superman from Superman 2 where he's like, General Zod, would you care to step outside? That's all I got. All right, we're moving on. Question number 2 comes from Joel. I guess he's a far off distant Kal-El friend. Joel says, now that they cracked the interdimensional travel, do you think an Avengers-esque movie can happen within the Fox universe like X-Men and Fantastic Four?
Well, I think it became pretty clear they have designs to create a shared cinematic universe. Like whether or not we're going to see any allusions to that in the first Fantastic Four movie, I do not know. But the reason they got, not Kimberg, Millar to kind of shepherd and oversee, they want one connective thread about the Marvel films that are going to be happening at Fox, is because their grand designs are shared cinematic universe things. Now, how fast that happens, I'm not sure, but I absolutely totally believe, I can't back it up, I totally believe that is what's going to happen.
But will we see Annihilus or Franklin Richards?
Eventually, we will see Psycho Man.
Franklin Richards.
Yeah,
would be
Franklin
interesting.
Richards so crazy. What about Dragon Man? All right, so question 3 comes from Jesus Acebalas Jr. He's one of our associate producers on our Superman film. Thanks to Jesus. He wrote, Herb Trimpe passed away yesterday. This was from a couple days ago. Not sure, but it seems like the kind of thing you'd mention on AMC Heroes. And I agree, Herb Trimpe was a fantastic artist, pretty much known as drawing the Hulk when I was a kid. He drew the Hulk for many, many, many years. And I really loved his artwork. He also drew the very first Wolverine. Basically,
Didn't know that.
yeah, from the Hulk 181. Oh, wow. And when the Hulk was fighting Wendigo, and then who's this guy who showed up? It was Wolverine. And that Herb Trimpe was the first artist to draw Wolverine. And unfortunately, he passed away. So Herb Trimpe, you live on forever in comic books.
But how weird is it that Wolverine was a random character that became really popular? Think of how many random characters that exist in the Marvel Universe. What are there, like 8 or 10,000 different characters that exist in Marvel? And what are the ones that bombed? You know, that like
were just way too many. Red Rocket Racer. I mean, I can list off like a billion bad characters for every one good character.
Right.
Question number 4 comes from Zach Frost. Hey, Schnepp, I made a video about why the world needs superhero movies. You might enjoy it. All you sweaties, check out this kid's video. I thought it was cool. It's not really even a question, but you should check it out because it's a really good video. Question number 5. When do you think they will introduce MODOK? Infinity Wars? Who do you want to portray him? I was thinking Peter Dinklage, which is a shoe-in. But what do you guys think about MODOK?
First of all, I was at Emerald City Comic Con recently, and there was a MODOK cosplay. That it was the coolest thing. These guys had built MODOK and his minions, and the MODOK head is as big as John right here, just the face part. So it was incredible. I mean, I'd love to see. I mean, that's what's so great about they're going to be making these things for decades because there's so many characters to get
so
through.
You know that MODOK is eventually going to be a live action dude floating around with some weird beam coming out of his head, and we're going to see it. Who is it going to be? I mean, Dinklage is kind of the shoe-in, but you could get Giamatti, but as long as he's not overacting like the Rhino. So now, ever since he was in the Amazing Spider-Man 2, I don't want him to be a MODOK. But
oh no, you dropped my pants!
No, I'm just a floating head. That's not even Jim.
The
That's
Rhino has
horrible.
missiles. What?
So, hey, here's the bonus extra sweaty question of the week. It's from me to you. I want you guys to write into hashtag AMC Heroes and tell me who is the weirdest character from any of the worlds, DC, Marvel, Image, that needs to be a movie. Needs a movie based on him, and I want the weirdest ones. I don't want just the B level. I want the strangest, freakiest characters that you can imagine that exist. Tell me who they are. So that's my question for you, extra sweaty question of the week. Thanks for tuning in to episode 7 of AMC Heroes. I'd like to thank our guest, John Campea, for being on. John, where can people find you?
Find me every day on AMC Movie Talk and around the various shows in AMC Movie News. And you can find me on Twitter and follow me on Facebook, just at John Campea.
Chris Gore, thank you for being our guest today. Where can people find you?
You can find me at that Chris Gore on Twitter or thatchrisgore.com. Or find me on Periscope.
and last day for your Kickstarter today.
Last day for the Kickstarter. So we'll see how that goes.
And where can people go to contribute to that?
Just go to filmthreat.com.
Check it out.
Cool, thanks.
And I'm Jon Schnepp, and thanks for tuning in. You can find me on Instagram and Twitter, just at Jon Schnepp and at TDOSLWH. Also go to TDOSLWH.com. We dropped our recent trailer just yesterday, and we're having our red carpet April 30th at the Egyptian Theater here in Hollywood. We're also having a screening on May 1st and 2nd, also at the Egyptian. May 3rd, in Austin, Texas, and then May 4th in Houston, Texas. So check us out. We've got a lot more dates that we're going to be announcing. You go to TDOSLWH.com on May 1st, and you'll also be able to pre-order your DVDs and your Blu-rays and your rentals for The Death of Superman Lives, which will be available July 9th. We'll be there at Comic-Con, San Diego Comic-Con. We'll have a booth. We've got a lot of posters. We're going to have all crazy kinds of stuff going on. So we'll see you then. And thanks for tuning in to AMC Heroes.